Did you know that vermilion was so toxic that it's actually no longer widely used throughout the world because of what it's made of? In this deadly beautiful video, I'll be talking about vermilion, its history, and how we use it today, if it's still used at all. Vermilion is a vibrant, toxic orange-red pigment made of mercury and sulfur. And this very toxic pigment has been used for centuries. The first recorded use was between 8,000 to 7,000 BC in Turkey. Its natural pigment was made using cinnabar, named for the red crystalline structure of mercury sulfide. The first use of the artificial vermilion was developed in China by heating mercury and sulfur together in a sealed container, which earned its name as China red. Vermilion comes from the Latin word vermilio, which means worm. It was named after the insect Curmis vermilio that produced a very vibrant red, similarly to how the vermilion pigment we know of looks. The name for cinnabar, which was the main ingredient of the natural vermilion, comes from the red crystalline structure of mercury sulfide, which makes up cinnabar. And cinnabar itself is actually a crystal. It is a very stark white stone with a bunch of pink flecks. It almost looks like candy cane bark, but I would not suggest eating it because it is mercury sulfide and very dangerous. Which is why both the natural and synthetic version of vermilion is so very toxic. Reason being is because it is a mixture of both mercury and sulfur. Just inhaling it for a short period of time can cause severe damage to the lungs and nervous system. Despite the fact that vermilion is a very dangerous paint, many artists use this very vibrantly beautiful pigment like Claude Monet, Vincent van Gogh, and Goya. Goya actually used this pigment so much that vermilion was later referred to as Goya pigment because he used it in so many of his paintings. One of his paintings being The Water Carrier, showcasing a very vibrant flower vase composition using that vermilion color. Despite vermilion's popularity both with artists, architectures, and cosmetic companies, I couldn't find any proof that it had killed anyone during its time before it wasn't used widely anymore. However, the people that suffered the most in regards to vermilion or mercury were the miners who excavated the cinnabar or mercury sulfide mixtures. For example, short-term exposure can cause skin rashes and respiratory disease, and in long-term exposure it can cause muscle tremors, irritability, and personality changes and rashes. And in severe cases, it can cause nerve damage, birth defects, and even death. Which explains why many artists like Goya and Van Gogh experienced such severe mood swings and poor life choices over time. Van Gogh literally picked up a habit of impulsively eating things that were inedible that probably led to his untimely death. Vermilion pigment with cinnabar or mercury is no longer widely used. It phased out of paint in the US around 1991 due to its toxicity, and soon the rest of the world followed. As vermilion fell out of popularity, it was replaced by a less toxic version called cadmium red. The only places that still have the vermilion are historical sites to showcase the toxic material. Despite the fact that vermilion is no longer widely used as a paint pigment, mercury is still used to this day in thermometers and electronic switches. On the scale of snackability, 0 being it is not toxic to 3 being don't ever go near the stuff, both in synthetic and natural form, I would put vermilion at a 3. It is very dangerous. I would never suggest going near it. If you enjoyed this episode of my Deadly Beautiful series, be sure to follow to see more.